On a small island in the Nile, above the first cataract near Aswan, a temple has stood for more than 2,000 years, its towering gateways and graceful colonnades mirrored in the calm water. This was the great sanctuary of Isis, one of the most beloved goddesses of the ancient world, and worshippers once crossed the water from across Egypt and beyond to honor her at this island shrine. It was among the very last temples where the old gods of Egypt were served, and its story reaches from the age of the pharaohs all the way to our own. Welcome to the Temple of Philae. We are in the far south of Egypt, near the city of Aswan, where the Nile narrows and breaks over the granite of the first cataract. Here the great river spreads around a scatter of small islands, and on one of them stands the temple complex of Philae. This is the ancient frontier of Egypt, the gateway to Nubia and the lands beyond, a place where the river has always been both the road and the giver of life. Before us, the island rises from the water, crowned with pylons, courts, and colonnades of warm honey-colored stone. Philae is not a single building but a whole sacred complex, gathered on its island and reflected in the surrounding Nile. Palms and the shimmer of the river frame the temple on every side, so that the sanctuary seems to float between water and sky. For the ancients, this setting was no accident, for the island itself was held to be holy ground. The river that cradles Philae is the heart of everything here. At Aswan, the Nile has always marked the edge of Egypt, its waters tumbling over dark granite rocks in the churning stretch known as the First Cataract. For thousands of years, this was a place of quarries and trade, where great stones for temples and obelisks were cut and floated downstream. To come to Philae was to arrive at the very threshold of Egypt, where the tamed river met the wild lands of the south. The temple belongs above all to Isis, one of the most beloved deities Egypt ever knew. She was the devoted wife of Osiris and the mother of Horus, a goddess of healing, magic, protection, and boundless love. Her worship spread far beyond the Nile, carried across the Mediterranean world, so that her name was spoken in lands that never saw Egypt. At Philae, she was honored as a great mother and giver of life, and this island became one of her most sacred homes. Because Isis was so beloved, Philae became a great destination of pilgrimage. Devotees came from across Egypt and from Nubia to the south, crossing the water to lay offerings before the goddess and to seek her blessing and her healing. Over the centuries, kings and emperors added to her sanctuary, each leaving new halls and gateways in her honor. The island once hummed with festival and prayer, a meeting place of many peoples gathered around a single beloved goddess. We come first to the great pylons, the massive gateway towers that guard the entrance to the temple. Their broad stone faces once blazed with carved and painted scenes of gods and rulers, rising high above the courts within. Beyond them, the sacred precinct of Isis opened out, through shaded halls and open courts that led inward toward the innermost shrine. Most of what stands here was raised in the Greek and Roman centuries, the last great age of temple building along the Nile. Along the water stretch the elegant colonnades, long rows of columns whose capitals bloom into carved palm leaves and papyrus and the face of the goddess. They line the approach to the temple like a forest of stone, casting bands of light and shadow across the paving. Between the columns, the Nile glitters, and the whole island seems shaped to lead the eye and the heart gently inward. Here, the ancient artistry of Egypt blends with the tastes of its Greek and Roman rulers into something graceful and serene. Standing near the water is the most famous landmark of Philae, the elegant Kiosk of Trajan, known also as Pharaoh's Bed. 14 great columns crowned with floral capitals once carried a roof over this open pavilion, which served as a grand ceremonial gateway from the river. Its simple, stately beauty has enchanted travelers for centuries, and its silhouette against the Nile has become the very image of the island. Named for a Roman emperor, it is a reminder of how many ages met and mingled here. At the heart of the worship here lies one of the greatest of all Egyptian myths. Osiris, the good king and husband of Isis, was slain and scattered by his jealous brother, and it was Isis who searched the whole land, gathered him, and by her magic restored him long enough to conceive their son Horus. It is a story of death and rebirth, of a love strong enough to overcome death itself, echoing the yearly renewal of the flooding Nile. To honor Isis at Philae was to remember that grief could be turned to hope, and endings into new life. Philae holds a special place in the long story of Egypt, for here the ancient ways lingered longest. Some of the very last hieroglyphic inscriptions ever carved were cut into these walls, long after the old writing had faded elsewhere. On this remote island, the priests kept the old rites and the old script alive, tending the goddess after the rest of Egypt had changed. The carvings here are, in a sense, the closing words of a language that had been written for more than 3,000 years. Philae was one of the last temples of the ancient Egyptian religion to remain active. Long after other sanctuaries had fallen silent, the worship of Isis continued on this island, until at last, around the 6th century, the Christian Roman Emperor Justinian ordered the old cult closed. In time, part of the temple was turned into a church, and crosses were carved beside the ancient gods. So the island passed from one age of faith into another, its stones bearing quiet witness to both. In the modern age, Philae faced a danger the pharaohs never imagined, the rising of the river itself. When great dams were built at Aswan to hold back the Nile, the reservoirs behind them swelled and slowly swallowed the island. For decades, the temple stood half-drowned, its columns reflected in still floodwater glimpsed by boat as travelers drifted among the half-submerged halls. And when the towering Aswan High Dam created the vast Lake Nasser, the waters threatened to claim Philae forever. What happened next is one of the wonders of our own time. In the 1960s and 70s, a great international effort led by UNESCO set out to save the temple from the flood. The entire complex was carefully studied, taken apart block by block, and rebuilt, stone by numbered stone, on the higher ground of nearby Agilkia Island. Tens of thousands of pieces were lifted from the water and set again in their proper places. The island we see today is Philae reborn, its ancient temple carried to safety and standing once more above the Nile. And so Philae endures, raised in the age of pharaohs and Caesars, home to the last worship of the old gods, and rescued in our own century from the rising waters. The Temple of Isis still stands upon its island, mirrored in the river as it has been for 2,000 years. Few places have witnessed so many ages, from ancient pilgrims to modern engineers, all drawn to the same sacred ground. It remains one of the most beautiful and beloved monuments in all of Egypt. An island temple of the beloved goddess Isis, the last home of the old gods, and a monument lifted stone by stone from the rising Nile. Thank you for watching. Follow for more interesting people, places, and things we cover on the channel.